new figures have been released, giving the clearest picture yet of who took part in the rioting and looting across London in August. The vast majority of offenders were known to the police, but less than 20% were involved in gangs. Our political correspondent, Carl Mercer, has more details.
It's just over 2 months since London looked like this. For close to a week, there were disturbances across the capital. And since then, there have been plenty of questions. Why it started, who was behind it, and what were their reasons? This morning, 2 reports from the government have started at least to answer some of those questions. What we found out today gives us much more detail as to how the riots touch nearly every part of London. It shows that everywhere except for Richmond and the City of London was hit by some level of riot-related crime. What we also learned from the Home Office figures is that Croydon was the worst hit place in the country with 430 crimes. There were other London hotspots too, with Southwark, Haringey and Ealing, all around 300 crimes. And who was behind the rioting and the looting? Well, 93% of those arrested over the Troubles had either been arrested or convicted before. And in London, 19% had known links to gangs. That's somewhat lower than the figures we were initially told.
They tried to pick up lots of gang members in the immediate aftermath of the riot, and that was probably because they knew who these gang members are, and therefore they had faces to names and they could pick them up. But what these figures say, and what we've suspected all along, is that these riots were being perpetrated by many more people who were not in gangs.
The government also revealed that many of those involved in the riots came from poorer backgrounds. A third of the young people involved had been excluded from school. Only 1 in 10 of them had done well in their exams. Today's figures also give us a clearer picture of who was on the streets at the start of August. 71% of those arrested were 24 years old or younger. And overwhelmingly, those accused of riot-related crimes are males, 88% in fact. And when it comes to race statistics, this is what the figures show us. They show us 32% of those arrested were white and 47% were black.
I think what we're seeing is that there were a range of causes and a range of people involved in the riots. Those of us who were on the ground that night understand that. The challenge is how do we deal with that? And what these stats reveal is that we need to focus on early intervention and we need police on the ground.
The government today rejected criticism that its cuts had a part to play in the disturbances. The riots, they say, were simply down to criminality.
There are no excuses for criminal behaviour, and the fact that half of the recorded offences were actually stealing and looting shows that these were opportunistic crimes. There are plenty of other young people, people from poorer backgrounds who do not resort to criminality.
The government is still conducting a wider-ranging review of the riots. That is due to report in the new year.
And Carl's here. So aside from the Home Office figures, the Met's published some early findings from an internal review into the way in which it policed the riots.
Yeah, it seems anyone worth their salt was conducting some sort of review into the riots. Clearly the Met had a key role to play. What they're finding out from this, the early findings of their internal review, what they've said to us, there was an unprecedented scale and speed of events on that night, and they've admitted to us that there weren't enough officers on duty on the night of the first riots when they broke out in Tottenham, and they say also that when the extra officers arrived, they didn't do so quickly enough. But they've also looked a little bit to the future, and what they're looking at is possibly the cost of water cannon, which was something that was talked about at the time of the riots, could prove controversial. Also about increasing the number of riot-trained officers that the Met has. And also, I suppose, crucially, looking at how their intelligence works with social media, things like BlackBerry, BBM and with Twitter, because that was crucial at the time of the riots. So as I say, a lot of reports at the moment, some looking at who was behind the riots, others like the Met looking at trying to prevent future ones.
OK, for now, Carl, thank you. Our political correspondent, Carl Messer. A